Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. It is less than 48 hours before Inter Miami and the Vancouver Whitecaps kick off the MLS Cup Final from Chase Stadium. Nervous, excited, fearful, all of the above. We're going to talk about it tonight. But before that, I'm your host, Scotty. I'm here with my co-host, Saur. How are you feeling tonight, my man?
I am back home, back in my setup, and honestly,
You can see the blank wall. Yeah, it looks good.
yeah, you can see the beautiful decorations behind me. We're very aesthetically pleasing as a podcast, as you can see. But I'm just waiting, man. I'm just waiting for Saturday. This entire week has just been sitting on my bench and thinking about, wow, Inter Miami's playing the MLS Cup Final.
We have the setups and potentially the faces for a podcast only type podcast and not a YouTube video, but we will push through regardless. Here's the deal, and I'm all about openness and honesty. This week, we thought it would be a great time to talk about Javier Mascherano. Yesterday was the 1-year anniversary from his hiring, December 3rd. And we have said some very critical things, scathing, tough things about Javier Mascherano over the last, since the season started. I think our first criticism came in Game 2 of the MLS regular season, 4 of the season overall, when we talked about him not rotating enough. And I'm not sure we stopped with the criticisms until relatively recently. And our thought was, Javier Mascherano's come a long way. Maybe we should do an entire episode talking about Javier Mascherano. And that will be, it's something we've talked about doing for a long time as soon as the season's ended. And we thought, I think our opinions, I think most fans' opinions have changed on Javier Mascherano. And so maybe we can do it without feeling like it needs to end a certain way. And we can just be an open, honest conversation that does end with positivity. But I'm not sure we can do that. So I will just say I went back and looked at a lot of the things we said about him this season, and I'm not sure a lot of them have actually changed. But I will just say I still think there's a conversation to be had about Javier Mascherano after the season. But for right now, this team's in great form, and I don't want to do or say or talk about anything that might distract me, the fans, the team, or just the general vibe from what has been a great run and what is going to hopefully be a great game on Saturday that I am extremely excited about. So I will let you talk about your thoughts on our Would Have Been podcast tonight before I discuss the new plan.
So basically what you're saying is that there's a chance that if we descend into a conversation about Javier Mascherano, it can turn slightly negative. There might be some criticism still, and there might be some opinions that dampen the mood. And we as fans do not want to dampen the mood ahead of the biggest game in Inter Miami's history. So to that effect, and I agree with you, I think there's a case to be made that this conversation can be punted into the future after we've done celebrating Inter Miami's MLS Cup victory. And we can talk about Javier Mascherano at another time, because I think there's a bigger picture in focus right now, which is Saturday afternoon when Inter Miami takes on Vancouver Whitecaps for the MLS Cup Final. Now, that means all the 17 pages of notes that I wrote for this episode are defunct. So I'm just going to throw them away. And you're going to tell me what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to come up with things on the fly. So don't blame me if I'm not prepared for this conversation.
I want to be perfectly clear. I'm going to come up with topics on the fly as well. So we'll see how this goes. Also, save the notes because I'm sure we'll come back to them at some point. But
to give everyone a sense of the behind the scenes, we never come prepared. So this is what we always do. So this is nothing new for us. I never come prepared.
What I will say about Javier Mascherano is that looking back, there were some high points in the season, and I think there was some pretty compelling reasons to give credit for those high points to Lionel Messi, for example, to the team's intensity, for example, in the Club World Cup. What they're doing right now, I think, and the success they're having right now is more tied to Javier Mascherano than any success they had all season in previous portions of the season, in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, in the Leagues Cup, in the Club World Cup, in the early MLS season run. Like what's happening right now and the success Inter Miami's having, I think, is as tied to Javier Mascherano as anything has been. And so, like, I don't want to just say it's all negative. Like, I don't want to put that teaser out and then just brush out and say that we're going to leave the hateful negative talk about him until another time and then just leave it there. Like, he has been really good lately. Some of the decisions he's made have been crucial, and we could talk about them for a long time. I think taking Gonzalo Lujan out of the starting 11, huge. Putting Rocco Rios Novo in net, huge. Deciding on Ian Frey over Chelo Weigant, huge. And then, listen, the biggest one, Luis Suarez, take him out of the lineup and put in Matteo Silvetti. Like, we will probably debate forever how much of that was Javier Mascherano's decision, but I'm totally happy to give him the credit for it. Like, he's done some great things lately, and I don't.
And in-game management as well. It's not just putting the starting 11 out there. He's had a few moments of in-game management where I think you and I have both been pleasantly happy with the way things have gone. So, absolutely. I think the circumstances have sort of favored the style of coach that Javier Mascherano is. And that's about it.
Yeah. Okay. So, Javier Mascherano, congratulations. 1 year as Inter Miami's head coach. It is not the shortest tenure officially in Inter Miami history. And also, like, I think we can put to bed any idea that he's not going to be back next year unless it's of his volition and he wants to go take a different job or something like that. Okay. Let's finish this episode with some talk about Vancouver and vibes and stuff. So let's get to some of the other team news and stuff going around the league. The big news from this week, there's a goalkeeper, surprise, surprise, from Argentina, named Guido Herrera from Talleres. Although I will say, now that Octi said that in the chat the other day, it might be Talleres. We'll see. It's an Argentine club. It is a goalkeeper who is Argentinian. He's 33 years old. Guido Herrera. Inter Miami's linked to him. So is Atlanta United. So it makes me think that he's going to be on the move this winter. And Inter Miami's goalkeeping situation, a little weird. Does Inter Miami need a new goalkeeper? Should Inter Miami add a goalkeeper to the room? Should they get a new number one? It's weird because I think this is another conversation that maybe is more appropriate after Saturday and before Saturday, not because our opinions are necessarily going to change. I think that's true of the Javier Mascherano conversation as well, but because I don't really want to distract from the team, and it's hard for me to talk about new players, whether it's a new right back, a new left back, a new goalkeeper, whatever it is, without sort of thinking about the implications for the guys that are on the team and the contract decisions that are coming up and stuff like that. So where are you at with this news, Guido Herrera? And then we can talk about the player after, but just what it means for the team.
It's very interesting. It almost feels like we've gone back and we've gone into the archives and pulled out our old playbook of transfer strategy. Because if Atlanta is going after this player, then that means there's some links to it, which is very interesting. I will always maintain that Rocco Rios Novo has been immense for this team over the last few months. Whenever he's been given the opportunity, he's done more than what was expected of him. But I do think that he has flaws in his game. And there are areas that he can improve as a player. Now, I think, deserves all the credit and should potentially get a run next season as well to at least compete for a number one position. But I always maintain that if you can strengthen a certain position, you should go for it. And if this is an opportunity where Miami can strengthen the position, I would absolutely look at that. I don't think it's viable to keep Oscar Starry on the current contract that he is on the roster. So I feel like they're going to try and move him out. And then with this Guido Herrera situation, I'm not sure what the contract will look like and how he is as a player, whether he's going to be brought in as a number one or to compete with Rocco Rios Novo. But I think Rocco's position is safe. I'd probably replace Oscar Starry. Is Guido Herrera the kind of player that you want to replace him with? That's a question to be asked. And then who's going to be the number one? The new goalkeeper who comes in, whether it's Herrera or Rocco Rios Novo. So a lot of interesting conversations there. And you're right, maybe now is slightly unfair time to judge Rocco before one of his biggest games of his career. But I do think there's room for Inter Miami to improve the goalkeeping department writ large.
Oscar Starry was really bad. And I know that we've said this over and over again, and I'm sure some people have gotten frustrated hearing it, but it is the case. And he had a couple skill sets that he was really good at, but in terms of the most important things about being a goalkeeper, he wasn't average, he wasn't below average, he was like one of the worst in the MLS at, and that was like devastating to this team. I think it's what kept them from winning the Supporter Shield. And Rocco Rios Novo has been a marked improvement. If you want to tell me that Inter Miami can go out and get a better goalkeeper, I believe you. I think that's totally reasonable. I will remind everyone, Rocco Rios Novo is on loan from Lanús, and they have a buy option, but that will obviously involve money and a new contract for Rocco. Oscar Starry is under contract because they gave him that contract extension back in May that we said was dumb to give him at the time. And that was when he was playing at his best, and everyone was high on Ustari. So they are going to live with the consequences of that decision for some time. Now, I don't know if that means they're going to use their one buyout on Oscar Ustari. I think that's actually plausible. But because you have to purchase Rocco Rios Novo and bring him in, like I think that is also a complicated situation. So, but what I will say is Rocco's been pretty good. Like, it's not necessarily a small sample size anymore either. When it was 7 games and his numbers looked good, that was one thing. Now that it's been 20 games, close to 15 to 20 games, he has looked the part for like half an MLS season against MLS and Liga MX competition, if you include the League's Cup games. I am nervous to go out and spend a lot of money on another goalkeeper and get mediocre to bad play from them, and to have that then be held against us when trying to make moves to improve the team moving forward in terms of using the salary space that goalkeeper would take up. And listen, we're talking about a 33-year-old from Argentina. He's not coming here to come on the cheap. He's not coming here to play for nothing. He's not a young kid trying to prove himself. He's like a veteran. He's going to want to be paid commensurate to his value. And by the way, he's got other options. So it's not going to be easy for Inter Miami or cheap for Inter Miami to bring this guy in. And I will say, I started to look into him today, and I see no reason to think he's going to be an improvement on Rocco Rios Novo. Now, again, small sample size on Rocco. Rocco has played, I would say, a little bit better in this small sample size than what we got from Drake Callender at his best. I would kind of expect that to be what we got from Guido Herrera as well. Sort of what we've gotten for most of Inter Miami's history with Drake Callender, with Rocco Rios Novo. A certain improvement over Oscar Ustari, but this goes to the conversation we had when they got rid of Drake Callender. You have a player in Rocco Rios Novo who's going to be on a team-friendly contract because he is going to be a young goalkeeper without a ton of minutes under his belt. He is American, so he won't take up an international roster slot, even though he is also Argentine. That's a pretty nice player to have on your roster and within the salary structure. and he feels like they're going to move him on in favor of an older goalkeeper who's not going to be a huge
Upgrade.
upgrade, and they're going to waste a lot of salary space just like they did 12 months ago. And so for that reason, it makes me pretty nervous. And again, if we were getting some superstar, you know, like I would feel
Emi
different.
Martinez.
Yeah, right. If we were getting Emi Martinez, I would feel much different. Based on a few minutes, 30 minutes of research, I don't feel like Guido Herrera is going to be really much of an upgrade at all.
I agree with largely everything you say. But what I want to add to that is I do not want the same situation that happened last season where so much uncertainty was surrounding our goalkeeping spot. So if the front office has made the decision that they want to change the goalkeeping position, do it. I don't want the half and half of, oh, we should maybe keep Rocco, maybe we let him go, whatever. Just make the decision and stick with it. I know it might be detrimental, and I agree with you. It makes me nervous how they're going to handle it. But I don't want the uncertainty between who's going to be number one, who's going to be number two. If you want to bring in somebody who you bring in with the mindset that he's going to be number one, stick with it and deal with whatever the consequences are.
There was no uncertainty in their heads. Oscar Usari was their guy. Like, I think in hindsight, we can say that pretty comfortably. They had no doubt that Oscar Usari was their guy. And they were wrong about it. Like, they just were, and thank God Javier Mascherano finally came to that realization. And by the way, I will just say, and I will never forget this, he did an interview where someone asked him about the advanced stats on Ustari, and he said, we don't really look at the advanced stats. And then I think after that interview, he went and looked at them and realized Ustari's been terrible, and he has to make a goalkeeping change. Because the next game is when we saw Rocco, and we haven't seen Ustari since. So this goalkeeping situation has and will always be a sore spot for me. But like, I think Rocco is done really well, and I think replacing him with a veteran that's probably not going to be a talent upgrade and spending a lot of money in an international roster slot on it does not feel like a great idea to me. And guess what? Here's what I'll say. If Ustari's one of the two goalkeepers next year, and the wage he's going to be on, and the roster spot he's going to take up, and an international roster slot and all that stuff, I almost think you can't go get another veteran goalkeeper.
Oh, I doubt it.
So you have to move Ustari on before you get someone new, and you're still going to need a guy like Rocco, a young, hungry, competitive piece. So I feel like this should be pretty low on the importance totem pole if you can create it. If you have a deal in place with Lanús to bring Rocco permanently, that makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree. I was just going to say thank the journalist who asked that question about advanced stats, because it seems to have kicked Javi Mascherano up the butt and made him change things. But yeah, this is an interesting conversation to be had. Who would have thought Rocco would actually put us in this situation where we're contemplating keeping him on? So well done to him for that. And hopefully he has a massive game on Saturday.
I also have to add, we don't know this for sure, but a lot of MLS players' contracts have bonuses where they get paid more if they win the MLS Cup the year before that.
Yeah.
And so, and that's exactly what happened to the LA Galaxy this year. They were in real cap trouble because all their players were given bonuses and higher base salaries because they won the MLS Cup last year. They had to move a bunch of guys on and couldn't bring anyone in because of their salary structure. So if Inter Miami wins, they could be dealing with a similar situation. The last thing you need to be doing is bringing in players that are not value for money. Now, obviously, Inter Miami is going to have more room to play with because of everything that's set up until this point. But spending more GAM on an international roster slot, paying for a veteran goalkeeper that's going to be more expensive than their value, like, it just doesn't feel like a great idea to me. So, nothing against Guido Herrera, but that is my opinion. I will say, and someone mentioned in the chat, there's also rumors about. Junior in the chat says, Kevin Cataño, who is a Colombian goalkeeper, he's 22, tall kid, 6'5", 6'6", 22 years old. That is much more interesting to me because now you're talking about a guy to compete with. So, and also who's not going to be on a huge salary. Mm-hmm. So that I think is much more interesting. But I'm sort of really turned off by the idea of getting some
Veteran.
33-year-old Argentine veteran.
Who's going to
goalkeeper,
demand playtime.
and also isn't like starring for his current club. So
Yeah.
okay. The other big rumor that's been going around lately, and I mentioned this to you right before we went live, and I think your opinion of this changed within 3 minutes of us talking about it. But I want to get your original instant reaction opinion to the idea of Timo Werner joining Inter Miami.
No, I didn't like it. Don't like him. Don't like it. Did not like it. Keep him away. That was my initial reaction. I think it has to do with my preconceived biases of watching him play for Tottenham and stink it up, and also for Chelsea, and also for, well, Red Bull, he was decent. But
And also stink it up for Chelsea too.
yeah, for Chelsea as well. He's not been great in the Premier League. He has gone for a lot of money to every single club that he's gone to, and he has been very underwhelming as a player. So my initial reaction was a big no.
And then what did I say when we talked about it? That may have changed.
You said that this is less to do with the player that's interesting and more to do with what it means about the front office thinking about how they want to surround Messi and create our front line. And I think that is a lot more interesting of a conversation. And in a universe where that's the idea that we're going in with, yeah, Werner wasn't great in the Premier League, but I do think there might be a role for him on this team.
Inter Miami this year went with a front two of Messi and Suarez. And then they had Allende making runs out from the right side and kind of not really from the left side much. And it was slow and unathletic. And partially you had to play that way because Messi doesn't want to run around a lot. Suarez is not that athletic. And you also have other guys on the team that are also not that athletic that have to play, like Sergio Busquets, for example. Busquets is going to retire. Jordi Alba is going to retire. I mean, I've never been less confident that Luis Suarez is going to be on Inter Miami next year as I am in this very moment. If they go out and bring in a Timo Werner, or even a guy like that, you're suddenly talking about playing a 4-3-3 that has Segovia, Yannick Bright, Rodrigo De Paul in the midfield, Matteo Silvetti, Lionel Messi, and Timo Werner up top. The upgrade in athleticism and ranginess from where you're at this season to where you would be at with just the one signing, really, would be astronomical. A huge difference. And so the reason why I really like these Timo Werner rumors. It's not because I love Timo Werner as a player, because I also watched him stink it up for Chelsea, and I also watched him miss a lot of sitters for Tottenham. The reason I like it is because it means the team is thinking about a future that they are ultra athletic in the midfield and ultra athletic up top, and they can play a different brand of soccer that I think we have not seen much of in the Lionel Messi era. Certainly not since Suarez joined the team at the beginning of the 2024 season, until maybe the last 3 games. And guess what's been really fun? The last 3 games. So if Inter Miami is in a position to add a player like that, and whether it's Timo Werner or not, if that's the profile of player they're going to go try out and get with their last DP spot, or if they can convince them to come on a TAM deal, I love that. I love the thinking. I love the intention. And I think a lot of Timo Werner's issues are his finishing ability. And guess what? He would have a ton more time to like, if you give him the ball in the box in the MLS, he's going to have a lot more time to prepare a shot and take it than he would at, in the Premier League. So, you know what he's great at, though? Pressing, running, the technical ability, the build-up play, like all the other things that make a number 9/winger effective. He's just not a good finisher. And at the Premier League level, when you're being paid, or when someone's paying $45 million for you, that's going to sink your career. In the MLS, that just gives you a ton of opportunities to get Messi the ball in and around the box. And I love that idea. So I kind of like the Timo Werner rumors a lot. I really do.
And listen, he's 29. And if he's coming to the MLS at that age, then that means he's fallen off a cliff when it comes to the prospects of his career. So that makes me a little bit skeptical in itself.
Yes.
But you're right. His technical ceiling is very high compared to anybody else on this team. He has all the skill sets to be successful in Europe. I'm not sure why it didn't work out for him. He was very gifted with the ball at his feet. He's a really good off the ball runner. You're right, his finishing is quite atrocious, but we've seen Allende miss sitters game in and game out. So if he can do even half of what Allende did and then add a little bit of that technical flair, there's a world in which he can really contribute to this team. And this would be a fantastic signing and a long-term one as well. Like 29 is a very young age. Also, the skills will transfer hopefully well from the Premier League, which is obviously more physical, difficult in terms of how much time you have on the ball versus the MLS, where I do think he will be able to enjoy a lot more freedom. Again, depends on the motivation. We had Giroud come in who didn't do well. So many of the players who come in from the foreign leagues don't do well. So there's a lot up in the air and a lot of question marks in this. But you're right. The philosophical thinking behind this transfer is what would be very exciting. And if it works out, it would definitely be a banging signing.
And let's be clear. Take out Timo Werner. If they get some kid from Ghana that's 21 years old or a 19-year-old from Ecuador or whatever, like it's the profile of player that I really like. So if anyone has a personal beef with Timo Werner, I get that. But for me, it's like the idea of what Inter Miami's thinking about for next year. I'm really interested in it. And that only becomes an option, not just because Suarez isn't in the starting 11, but also Busquets and also Alba. So when you're replacing those three ultra super talented players, you're going to have to find other ways to build an advantage for yourself. And those guys couldn't play an ultra hyper athletic style. But if they're not going to play, because they're going to not be on the team potentially in Suarez's case, you can play that way. And I think that could be great for this Inter Miami team and a lot of fun for us to have a different style that's more ambitious,
dynamic,
exciting,
and
dynamic.
Absolutely.
I also this is the other thing. Inter Miami has really good players that could also, I think, morph to that style well. Like I do think Rodrigo de Paul would be better in that, like a more
fast-paced
system. I do think Toasco Segovia and Matteo Silvetti and maybe a Baltasar Rodriguez have the athleticism and wherewithal to thrive in that system as well. So I think the pieces that are going to be here next year are also pretty well equipped to go into that style of play.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just think the defense will have to be upgraded as well, just because we are not that mobile defensively. But there's a lot of exciting things that we can do on the pitch if you just add that athleticism and those legs and that dynamism that I think we've really enjoyed over the last 3 games. And I feel like Javi Mascherano, having seen this team flourish in that system and style, will want to achieve that even more and take it a step further, hopefully. If I was the coach, that's how I would be thinking. He's tried multiple variations with this team. He's tried to go defensive. He's tried to go mid-block. He's tried to go all out. And the best that this team has looked is when he's gone all out and allowed the players to do what they do best, and that's attack. So attack. And if you want to build the team around that philosophy, I think we're in for a very exciting season next year.
Do you think they're going to sign some kids?
They must. They have to. It's worked for Inter Miami so far. We brought in some few kids, but
that's been the most interesting thing to me because I think the U22s can sometimes be the most spectacular signings because if you get it right, they're young and energetic and hyper athletic and they fit well on the roster and they don't demand certain, amounts of the ball or certain positions they have to play or whatever. Like they can, but they're still really talented. But I look at next year's roster, like Segovia's in that spot, although I have been saying this all year. They could buy him out of that if they wanted to. So Vetti will be locked into that spot. So that's 2, you would imagine. If they sign Baltasar, that's 3. And they also have Toto Aviles, who's who would occupy that spot. So even if they move Atoto, Baltasar would occupy that spot if they sign him permanently. Like it doesn't actually free anything
There's
up
no
in an
room.
easy way.
And maybe
Necessarily.
they've done their shopping for the youth already for next year. Maybe this is why they were building into it.
But that's my point is maybe that
Yeah.
like I want them to go sign 2. But that would probably mean not bringing back Baltasar. It would probably mean
Yeah.
moving on.
I mean, Obondo's
Aviles.
career is also up in the air, and it might not be a U22. It might be someone like that. So we'll see. I do think there's room, but we'll have to make the logistics work. I don't know if there's room for Baltazar in this team next year, as much as I like him.
That is such an interesting conversation. But again, one for next week. Okay, those are the big topics. A couple smaller notes that I will mention. The U.S. Open Cup announced today they're going to have 16 MLS teams. So that is not going to include Inter Miami. I don't think either of us ever thought Inter Miami would be in the 2026 version of the U.S. Open Cup because of the World Cup that was going to be happening. The schedule is going to be so condensed that I really think it's going to be difficult for any team playing both in continental soccer, in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, to also play in the U.S. Open Cup, not just Inter Miami, any team. But I think they're going to have a smaller, abbreviated version of the tournament next year. So that became official, and I think you can probably chalk down Inter Miami won't be a part of it. I still hold out hope and have since we found out at the beginning of last year that Inter Miami was not going to participate in it, that 2027 would be the year. And hopefully one of the things that happens with the calendar change is that they can align it in a way that makes sense to have the U.S. Open Cup once again be a part of every MLS team's schedule, because I think once you get to the other side of the World Cup next summer, there really is not an excuse anymore to not have every team participate in that tournament. So interesting times ahead.
Yeah, I don't think they would have not had the US Open Cup next year, because oldest tournament in the world, I believe. So of course, I think they would have had to go ahead with it. I can understand why it's a shortened version. So you're basically saying that they're not even going to have the second teams that they had last year participate on behalf of some of the MLS teams.
I actually didn't see anything about MLS Next Pro.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, but they did announce that 16 MLS and 17 USL teams would. So that would imply a pretty small, limited tournament. And also once I saw that Inter Miami wasn't going to be a part of it, I kind of
no, that makes sense.
Details.
That makes sense. But I would love for Inter Miami to be back in the US Open Cup eventually, man. That's something that you want to win. We got to the final, weren't able to take it to the finish line, but I really want us to play in that tournament and compete for it. So maybe after the World Cup, we have a couple of years where it all sorts itself out.
Yeah, and the other thing is, part of going to this new schedule is like being taken seriously, and participating in your national cup competition, I think is like part of being taken seriously.
Absolutely.
So I'm not sure what this means for the Leagues Cup next year. Do you think there will be one?
I don't think so. It's too congested. When are they going to have it, right? You have the CONCACAF Champions Cup, then you obviously got the MLS, and then you've got the World Cup in the middle as well. And if you add the US Open Cup, maybe they do the Leagues Cup towards the end of the calendar for MLS, but I think that's just going to be too much. So I think it might be a year off for the Leagues Cup.
We looked at the calendar like a week or two ago, and I don't remember seeing an obvious space in there for the Leagues Cup.
And
maybe I'm wrong about that, and it would be at the end of August, early September.
But if you
period.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Like maybe they do it later on. But if you remember last year, I think when the MLS schedule came out, the Leagues Cup schedule also dropped along with that, because I remember discussing it concurrently.
No.
Or maybe it was later.
We projected because we could tell where the blocks were that made sense for the Leagues Cup. But next year,
I
because
think there's
the
no
MLS
obvious
schedule,
blocks. Yeah.
Yeah, the MLS schedule is going to be broken up because of the World Cup. I think it's a little tougher this year. And then the other thing, it's going to be a pet peeve of mine for quite some time, but rumors that Nubank is coming close to a deal to buy the naming rights for Miami Freedom Park next year. So how would you like to play at the new park next season?
Or it's the New Bank Miami Freedom Park.
I saw someone say they play at the new camp in Barcelona. They're going to play at the new park in Miami. Not the same spelling. And also one being, named after someone important and one being named after a bank. I will say, I never really liked the fact that they changed it from Chase Stadium. And I know Drive Pink was also a sponsor, so that's probably sounds silly to say, but Drive Pink is like energetic and athletic, and pink, which is very Inter Miami themed. And Chase Stadium is nothing. So I don't like the idea that we don't get to have like a real name for the stadium before the sponsor comes in. I want us to have like a classic name for the stadium, like something everyone actually calls it before the sponsor comes in. But maybe that's what makes the sponsorship so valuable, is that there is no preconceived notion about what this stadium is supposed to be called before we get to put our name on it. So New Bank Miami Freedom Park next year.
Nah, man, call me old-fashioned, but I hate having sponsors on stadiums. I know it rakes in a lot of money for the club and it's very financially beneficial, but I despise it. Like, there's nothing better than a Bernabeu. I hate the Emirates. I hate the Etihad as a name. Highbury was where it was at, right? Old Trafford is where it's at. New Camp, like that's tradition.
Well,
that's
and the
culture.
thing is, if someone came and bought the naming rights to Old Trafford, everyone would still just call it Old Trafford. They wouldn't call it, or even in Barcelona.
I would hope
right?
so.
It's the Spotify New Camp, but no one calls it the Spotify.
Calls it
New Camp. They call it the
Spotify,
New
yeah.
Camp. So, like, I wish Inter Miami could establish that for at least a couple months before they actually like have a name attached to it.
I want us to be called, like, I want us to have like an Anfield where it's a fortress. If you say Peacock TV Anfield, that just kills the entire mood. So I agree with your pet peeve, and I do not want it. I want to go back to traditional names for the stadiums based on where they were, what the history and culture of the club is, maybe the location of that place. And Miami Freedom Park is actually a really nice name. I don't mind it at all. Just call it Miami Freedom Park.
Yeah,
but
I like it
we'll
too.
See.
But Pepto makes a great point. He says, counterpoint, bags of money. So, which is ultimately what is
always a good counterpoint, man. No way we can compete with that. Money is
think
fun.
we might feel different if we were getting the money, but because we're not getting the money, we can complain about naming and all this other stuff. So that's certainly relevant to our point of view. That's all I got. I want to talk about Vancouver, but before we do, and we've mentioned it a couple times already, we should talk about how fast this offseason is going to come together. Obviously, Inter Miami's never been playing this late into the season, so we've had 3 weeks, a month, 6 weeks in some seasons between Inter Miami's season ending and when the offseason gets started. This year, it's going to be right away. The MLS Cup is on Saturday, December 6th. I think free agency opens December 10th. Inter Miami's roster decisions are going to be due, I believe, on December 8th. So it is going to be fast-paced and really quick this offseason. It's going to be a short offseason. Inter Miami's probably going to be playing games 7 weeks after the final on Saturday. So how are you feeling about that? Because on the one hand, it's the privilege of being great. But on the other hand, these conversations about our new goalkeeper or getting a new goalkeeper or bringing a new striker or whatever, they are happening concurrently with the guys trying to stay focused. And Inter Miami, I'm sure, doesn't want people thinking or talking about a new goalkeeper while they need their 22-year-old to be locked in for Saturday night. So how are you feeling about it? Are you ready for the sort of avalanche that's going to come, whatever happens Saturday? And are you excited, or are you just nothing matters but Saturday?
I think it's an unfortunate jeopardy of having the calendar the way it is, that if you make it to the final, you're going to have to deal with the off-season almost immediately afterwards. which is fine. I'd rather have it that way if it means my team is actually making it to the final. So I understand that it's not ideal, and we're going to be going and charging into the avalanche as soon as the season ends, and we're not going to have a downtime even for ourselves. But I'd rather my team wins the MLS Cup, or at least plays the MLS Cup final, than anything else. So
For
I'm
sure.
fine with that. I think these are professionals. They will close out the noise around them. I hope they do. And honestly, it doesn't matter what the roster decisions are and when they're due and what's going to happen. All that matters is what's going to happen on Saturday. As for fans as well, I think as you and I are constantly talking about it, we're trying to punt those conversations to the next week. So a lot of people are going to be doing that as well. And that's for the future. Right now, we have to think about Saturday, and we have to win on Saturday. And that's all that matters.
Yes. And here's what I will just say behind the scenes. We have talked about every week for the last month what we're going to do if Inter Miami season ends and how we're going to have to handle it Sunday, Monday, in the next few days. But that's happening Saturday regardless.
Yeah.
Hopefully with big smiles. But they are coming, and I just hope you guys
Thick
are
and
ready
fast.
to talk about some awards on Sunday, talk about roster decisions on Monday, talk about where they need to improve on Tuesday, predict the offseason on Wednesday. It's going to be a pretty busy week next week for us at the Driving Dialogue, and I think it will be so much more fun if we're talking and starting every episode with the MLS Cup champions. Speaking of which, let's talk about it. Inter Miami plays on Saturday. Before we do, I will just say in the chat, someone says, Canadian referee. And I just want you guys to know the referee for Saturday's game is the same referee Inter Miami had 2 weeks ago in the game against Cincinnati. He won MLS Referee of the Year the last 2 seasons, and that's Drew Fisher. So I think from a referee perspective, you got to feel pretty good. Just called Inter Miami a 4-0 victory against Cincinnati, and he's been crowned by the MLS as the best referee in the league for multiple years in a row now. So Drew Fisher, referee this weekend. I don't think there's any worries. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I hope it goes to the way that the referee's not even thought about in that game. That's the ideal final for me.
And if you don't know who he is, if you look him up and you see his picture, you will instantly recognize him. So,
Yeah.
he is Canadian, though. That is true.
You want the best. Hopefully, he's not from Vancouver. That would be that would be helpful. If he's from like Toronto or somewhere, that means he has a rivalry with Vancouver, and that would be helpful. But either ways, man, it doesn't really matter. If you have to think about the referee going into the game, then what's even the point, right? I think Inter Miami's good enough to beat Vancouver without any outside influence. I just hope it doesn't influence Inter Miami's game in a negative way, and I don't think it will. He's a professional referee. He's very good. He has managed some really important games in his career, and there's a reason he's there. So.
And again, like the reason I'm saying this is because I think he is a genuinely good referee.
Yeah.
Some try their best and still aren't particularly great. Let's talk about the game. I always think that big games often come down to which superstar can make a play in the crucial moment to give their team momentum. When things are going against you, who's going to be the guy to step up and make the play happen? And this Vancouver team, I was hoping they wouldn't go through. I wanted to see San Diego because San Diego doesn't have the big names, and Vancouver does. Thomas Mueller and Sebastian Berhalter and Brian White. And, they have guys that can change the game on a dime. And Inter Miami, well, we have Tadeo Allende. What are your first thoughts on this game?
Going to be the hardest game of the season. Has to be a revenge game. They knocked us out of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which was embarrassing to say the least, the way we lost that game. So Inter Miami has to go into this with their heads locked in and with the sense that they're going to win this game no matter what. It's going to be very difficult. Vancouver is not going to be a pushover by any means. And the advantage is with Inter Miami. They're playing at home. They have the 12th man behind them. They don't have to do the travel. So this time, one way or another, we have the home court advantage. And Vancouver is a fantastic team. Mueller is brilliant. he's played in some of the biggest games in world football, much like Messi. He's won some of the biggest games in world football, much like Messi. He has the knack of showing up in these important moments and making a difference, much like Messi. So I don't want to make it a Mueller versus Messi conversation. I think both teams have enough superstars and enough X factor players who can change the game in an instant. And it's going to be a really fun affair, but it's also going to be nerve wracking and difficult for Inter Miami. But I believe that my team has enough to overcome whatever Vancouver has to throw our way. On paper, I still think we're the better team. And I just hope it's an exciting final and the best team comes out as the winners. And I wouldn't doubt it that it's going to be Inter Miami.
That was the worst game of the season. Maybe.
I would say so. Well,
Like lowest point in the season. Maybe the Orlando City lost 3-0. But that's right there.
that was bad.
Here's what I will say. Here's what I remember.
And it wasn't just one game, it was 2 games back to back against Vancouver that we just absolutely were decimated in.
Here's what I remember about that part of the season is that Inter Miami was not playing well, and we were yelling it. But they were still kind of getting results, and they started the season with 8 straight wins. Sorry, seven straight wins, 8 straight wins. 7 wins out of 8 with a draw. That they looked good in the standings. So they were acting like everything was fine, we're good. But the results had really slowed, and more importantly, the performances really looked bad. And then they lost to Vancouver in embarrassing fashion, 5-1 on aggregate, including a 3-1 loss at home in the second leg. That was the first time they admitted, like, okay, maybe this isn't going so great because they had been eliminated. It continued for it continued for a while after that. But that was, I think, the first moment they sort of said to themselves, this isn't going right. We're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. And I think it was hopefully a wake-up call. And I have no doubt it's going to be remembered in the sense that these guys know Vancouver's the real deal. I think what we saw on Saturday against NYCFC was an Inter Miami team that thought they were better. I think we saw that against Nashville as well. I think more similar to what we saw at FC Cincinnati, we're going to see a team that knows this is a very good Vancouver team that can beat us if we're not sort of on our A game. So I think you're going to see a lot of things you saw in that Cincinnati game. High pressing, a lot of activity, a lot of hard work, a lot of intensity, pressure through the midfield, and our defense sort of playing an ultra-intense, high-effort, 100% locked-in game, especially for Maxi Falcone. So I think mentally they're prepared. I don't think they're sleeping on this Vancouver team at all. Like I think they may if this was San Diego. And that's the sort of flip side of the coin. They've seen this Vancouver team on this field beat us up and us look at ourselves like, what just happened? And how did we let that happen? And so I think mentally they're going to be prepared for this game.
And one thing I know for sure about the likes of Jordi Alba, Luis Suarez, Rodrigo de Paul wasn't part of that team when we lost to Vancouver. But I can also show you, even Lionel Messi, they're vindictive, man. If their ego gets hurt, if their pride gets hurt, they come at you. We saw what Maxi Morales had to say to Messi and Messi's reaction to that, and we decimated New York after that. So Messi's vindictive. He's going to come after you if he feels his ego has been bruised. He's been at the top of this game not for nothing. So if you think they're nice guys who are just going to sit back and hope that their talent gets them through to the final, no, they're going to remember exactly what happened in those 2 games in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. They had a chance to get to the final in that game, and they lost that chance. They played very poorly. So they're going to know exactly what they're dealing with. They're going to know all the conversations that are happening behind the scenes about Mueller, about how good Vancouver is, about how they've played this entire season. And they would not want to lose at their home ground in front of their home fans. So everything that you said, I think take it up at least 2 notches, because this is a team that's going to be coming for blood. And I hope that's the mentality that they go into this with.
Natalia in the chat says this year we've been really good at revenge games. And it just got me thinking about our sort of quote unquote revenge games. And I'm actually not sure we've been that great at revenge games this season. The first one I think was Inter Miami getting a chance to beat Atlanta early in the season after Atlanta knocked us out of the playoffs early. We won that game in the 89th minute because of Fafa Picault. And that Atlanta team turned out to not be very good. Orlando City beat us 3-0. Then they beat us 4-1 in the next game. And yes, we ended up getting them back in game 3 in the Leagues Cup when it most mattered, but they got a red card that turned that game on its heels. Cincinnati, we lost 3-1. The next game at home, we got a 0-0 draw where they were still the better team. So I don't know, actually. Like, they haven't been particularly fantastic in revenge games. And let's be clear, they did beat Seattle in a couple weeks after the Leagues Cup. They did end up beating Cincinnati in the playoffs a couple weeks ago. But I think you're right. I think they are vindictive. And I'm not sure the track record is spectacular when they're trying to get vindication. So maybe that isn't actually like a great point in our favor. Okay, I think there's 2 more things I want to talk about. The first is, do you think this will be the last game at Inter Miami for Luis Suarez?
Yes.
Doesn't have to be a final prediction. Doesn't have to be a final prediction, but like in this moment, do you think so?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's done for him. He came out saying that the first game that he was dropped, I think, against Cincinnati. Was that against Cincinnati? Yeah, it was against Cincinnati, right?
Correct.
It was a tactical decision, and then the next game after that was, I think, Javi Mascherano making the decision that Suarez needs to be benched. And he said he's a professional, but he also wants to play. And I think he's swallowing the bitter pill in this case, and he wouldn't want to see out his career in Miami by being on the bench. So I think he's done, man. I think it's over.
You know what's weird? We're 3 weeks from him being a locked-in starter on this team. Actually, 2 weeks from him being a locked-in starter because 3 weeks ago he was just suspended. You know, it's always so weird. And one of the reasons we were thinking about talking about Javier Mascherano, one of the reasons we did the top 20 draft in the middle of the playoffs instead of after, because we don't want to be prisoners of the moment. And I think it would be easy to see, oh, Suarez hasn't started the last 3 games and the teams look good without him. He's been forgotten or he's been moved on. Like they moved past him. And I certainly have that feel. Like that's certainly what it feels like. It does. But I also don't want to be a prisoner of the moment. So I just want to like leave the idea of it not being the case open. I just want to make sure we're all on board with that. I do think it's his last game. It definitely feels that way. And
by the way,
if it is,
if Inter Miami wasn't winning and he was still on the sideline, he would be stinking it up right now. So he's being professional, yes, but that's because Inter Miami's winning and handsome.
But the same thing with Yannick Bright and Telasco Segovia.
Yeah.
Like if Inter Miami wasn't winning, we would be having very different conversations. And listen, we'd be talking about off-season stuff right now if they weren't. But if this was a regular season, they weren't winning. You're right. But also, it wouldn't just be him. But I guess my point is, like, I don't know if Inter Miami is going to be prisoners of the moment, but like I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, but I definitely think it feels like his last game. And so if that's the case, we're talking about Luis Suarez, Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets are about to play their very last game at Inter Miami. And of course, the MLS Cup is the most important thing, and winning is the most important thing. But also, been a big fan lately of just being appreciative of what we get and what we get to see. And do you think the fact that it's their last game, as professionals for Busquets and Jordi Alba, do you think that plays a factor in this game at all, or not really?
I don't think it will play a factor negatively in any way. I think it might just actually be a positive thing. I expect fireworks from Jordi Alba. Sergio Busquets is too much of a professional. I think he's going to do exactly what he does every single time he's on that pitch, and he's going to not be a prisoner of the moment, as you just said. I think he's going to recognize the occasion and just do his own thing and go about it and make sure he dominates that midfield. Jordi Alba, I think, is going to up his game. He's that sort of a personality. I think he's going to try and demand everything on that pitch from every single player from Inter Miami, and I think that's going to be in our favor. I'm very excited for this game. Very sad that this is going to be their last game, but I think it's only going to galvanize the squad. I've seen sports teams be completely different when they recognize that someone huge on their team is going to retire, whether it's their coach or whether it's one of their longest serving players, one of their most important players. I've seen teams perform at a different level, and I think that's going to be the case for Inter Miami as well. If it hasn't already, by the way, I feel like it's already been working its magic a little bit. I think the last game is just going to be special in one way or another.
Yeah, they are special. And, you know, one of the things that can happen in that type of situation, and it doesn't just have to be if these guys are retiring, but if they were just leaving and joining different clubs or whatever, like you could feel like, man, we really wasted an opportunity. And I think if Inter Miami had lost in the first round in Nashville, it was another upset or something like that, like we would really be lamenting the fact that we had Suarez and Busquets and Jordi Alba on this team for 2 years and won 0 MLS Cups and 0 CONCACAF Champions Cups, and the trophies we want the most, we didn't get because, well, whatever the reason would have been. But like we would just be furious and so frustrated that happened, and it would feel so bittersweet. And the thing is, if we can win on Saturday, those 2 to 3 guys are like, it's going to be proud.
Vindication.
It's going to be pride. Like, we're sad to see you go, but we're happy that you get to do this next thing. And there's not going to be any regrets. It will feel like the
chapters closed the right way.
Right. With a happy ending. Yeah.
With a happy ending. Yeah.
So I think that's also like important, at least for me as a fan.
Yeah.
And then the other protagonist in this story that's going to see their chapter come to an end is Dry Pink Stadium, Chase Stadium, which, again, they're going to be opening Miami Freedom Park, which I know a lot of you not from South Florida, you don't realize that they are not close to each other. And so it is going to feel like they're moving this team. It's going to feel like the team is in a different place. They are in a different place, but it's not going to be in the parking lot.
Very
a lot of stadiums are built in the parking lot of the current stadium or something like that, where you take the same route to get there and you get off of the same highway exit or whatever. Yeah. It's not going to feel like that at all. So for Chase Stadium, Dry Pink Stadium, which is where I fell in love with this team and where I went to go see this team, and it's the closing chapter for the stadium as well. And I think that's also important to like close off on a great note. So
it's been a major part of our first history. Now it's time to write another chapter with a new stadium. But before that, we got to, appreciate all the memories that we've had. The stadium's seen a lot of fun games and a lot of fun memories. So hopefully we can end it up on a high note as well, with the best of the memories that we can think about.
Yeah. And then one thing I should mention before we get to my last topic was Tadeo Allende missed practice today. Maybe we should have led with this. Javier Mascherano after said that he had a little bit of a fever, and so he should be fine tomorrow. We'll see tomorrow if he's at practice and is ready to go, but that's why. So if you saw that today, Javier Mascherano has implied that it's not a big deal and that he should be fine. So, it would be crazy if Tadeo Allende missed the game and that ended up being the thing we look back and say, man, what if?
So you mean if Tadeo Allende misses the game, Suarez gets back into the lineup, or?
I don't think Tadeo is going to miss the game.
I don't think so either.
So
yeah.
And then the last thing I want to talk about as we close out here is we've never done this before as Inter Miami fans, and there's a lot of MLS fan bases that have never done this before. Cincinnati, they've never done this before. Austin's never done this before. And San Diego's never done this before. And Nashville's never done this before. And Charlotte's never done this before. And I could keep going on for another 10 teams. has never been in this moment where they're, as a fan base, get to celebrate their team's big accomplishment in getting to this point. And so, as we are here, enjoy it. Enjoy the festivities. Watch the pregame show. Watch the postgame show. Make a day out of it. Don't burn the popcorn, and just appreciate the opportunity to be here, because of course there's a chance that we're all very frustrated at the end, and we won't be able to look on it positively at the end. But in the meantime, I do encourage you all to really just stop, sit back, and say, this is pretty cool, because you don't know when you're going to get back here. And as Inter Miami's seen, they can have Lionel Messi on the roster and not just get here automatically. So, appreciate the moment.
Yeah, don't take anything for granted. As you reminded me offline, this may never happen again. I mean, I hope it does, and I'm sure it will, but this is almost a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, man. So I completely agree with you. Just sit back, soak in the moment, and one more game. One more game, and one way or another, the season's over. So appreciate your team, get behind your team, and enjoy every minute of the 90 that we play, because it's going to be fantastic. And I'm sure we're going to be on the edge of our seats the entire time. But one way or another, we'll all be there together rooting for the same team. And that's the most amazing thing about the sport.
You and I did a 3-hour pregame show for the opener of the Club World Cup. We're doing a 4-hour pregame show on Saturday.
I'm online at 9 a.m., man. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm live at 9 a.m. Everyone join me, and we're just going to keep going until the game is over.
Yeah, we're going to have to work in some bathroom breaks, because I think we forgot to do that last time, and it became painful at the end. Guys, thank you so much. We're going to be here for the pregame show 1 hour before kickoff, maybe a little bit before that, actually. We haven't discussed it, but maybe. We'll see. But till then, I hope you guys have a lovely night. And I think you guys should just sort of let the nerves creep in and let the excitement creep in, and don't let it stop until kickoff, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. And until then, hope you guys have a lovely week, and we'll see you guys then. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Since our first viewer, sharing this with you all has been the very best part. So from the beginning until the end, thank you for being a part of this, and have a wonderful day.